All right, sports fans, how's everybody out there doing? William Martin coming at you one more time here on YouTube with another edition of the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge Podcast. Now it's time to exhale as after the first weekend of the NCAA men's basketball tournament, we've gone from 68 teams to 16 rather quickly. What have we seen so far? Well, the Big 12 and the SEC have each taken it on the chin as each of those leagues had 8 entries into this tournament, but only two were able to get to the Sweet 16. You can go right down the list as far as questionable losses, most notably for the SEC. Kentucky, the 3 seed, losing to a 14 seed Oakland in round number one, and then the 4 seed Auburn losing to 13 seeded Yale. And then from the Big 12 side, Baylor getting upset in the second round. They were a 3 seed as well as they fell to Clemson. Now, the ACC came into this tournament with 5 teams. Of course, Virginia got bumped out in the play in, but the ACC still has 4 teams going strong. You got Clemson, you got North Carolina State, you got Duke, and of course, North Carolina. The Big East came into this tournament with 3 teams, UConn, Marquette, and Creighton, and all three are still standing. The Mountain West had 6 bids, but powerhouse San Diego State is the only one from the Mountain West that was able to get through to the Sweet 16. Now, for UConn, they are looking to defend their national championship, and it won't be easy. The road back to the Final Four, just out of the East region. I know that they're going to be in Boston, and I know that they're going to have plenty of fans there in Boston to support them. But a rematch, okay, of last year's national championship game against San Diego State on Thursday. Not the same Aztecs team that we saw last year, but nonetheless, they will be formidable. And then if the Huskies are able to get past the Aztecs, they've got either the Fighting Illini or Illinois and a very good Iowa State team that could potentially face off against them in the Elite Eight. Looking right down the list, the West region is definitely going to be a battle to try to cut down the nets this weekend. You've got North Carolina taking on Alabama, and then you got Clemson taking on Arizona. And for North Carolina, they got a good test this past Saturday when they were able to beat Michigan State. You know, the Tom Izzo's teams are always battle tested for March. The Spartans came out strong, but North Carolina was able to rally. I think it was important for the Tar Heels to go on that deep run just prior to the end of the first half, and they were able to set the tone for the second half as they won going away against Michigan State. Now they face an Alabama team that's known for their offense. Will the Tar Heels defense be able to shine and slow down the Crimson Tide to get to the Elite Eight? We've got to wait and see. And if you're Alabama, you know what? You got tested against a good Grand Canyon team. Now you've got to go up against North Carolina as you look to get to the Elite Eight. Remember, Alabama got to the Sweet 16 last year, but things just fell apart. Now, on the flip side of that bracket, you got Clemson going against Arizona. And if you're the Wildcats, you're the last hope, literally, for Pac-12 basketball at this point. We saw the Wildcats as a 2 seed in the West last year get bumped out in the first round by Princeton. This time around, a different Wildcats team, a hungrier team, a team that knows how to finish. We saw them get behind early in round number one to Long Beach State. We saw them weather the storm against a good Dayton team out of the A10 on Saturday in the second round. And now the Wildcats will be favored against Clemson, but do not sleep on this team. We saw the Tigers get blown out in the first round of the ACC tournament against Boston College, but they came back and righted the ship in round number one against New Mexico. And then, like I said, they basically dictated the pace against Baylor this past weekend in round number two. So Clemson definitely has to be a team to be reckoned with. You look at the South Regional, and you got Houston going up against Duke. And, you know, a lot of people feel that Houston has what it takes not only to win this region, but also to win it all. Duke, you know, I look at the Blue Devils, and I'm not going to say that they've sleptwalked because they really haven't. They had to dig a little deep. I know that, you know, you don't want to look at the final score of the contest when they beat Vermont. this past Friday in round number one. But nonetheless, Duke had to work for that. And of course, they took care of their business in the second half against James Madison. But will the Blue Devils be able to pull off the upset against Houston? I think what they have to do, play half court. They have to slow Houston down, which is easier said than done. And of course, in Dallas, there's going to be plenty of Cougar fans making the trek there. On the flip side, NC State, it looks like they're trying to wear that glass slipper again. The Wolfpack went into the ACC tournament a couple of weeks ago, knowing they needed to win to get to the NCAA tournament. And what the Wolfpack did, they won 5 games in 5 days, and that has carried over now to this NCAA tournament. They knocked off Texas Tech. They really dominated the Red Raiders in round number one. And then they were able to fend off a very good and game Oakland team in round number two. And now they get Marquette. And for the Golden Eagles, we saw them, work. They were down early against Western Kentucky in round number one. They were able to hold off a very good Colorado team, and now they get another double-digit seed here in North Carolina State. For the Golden Eagles, we saw them get bounced out in round number two last year, courtesy of Michigan State. Some people feel like Marquette has what it takes to get to the Final Four. I'll tell you like this: them not having Tyler Kolek for that stretch late in the season, and then for them to turn that around and get to the Big East championship game and be very competitive against a real good UConn team, I think that helped Marquette's psyche. And I think the Golden Eagles are a dangerous team under Shaka Smart. But I am not going to write off NC State. North Carolina State is definitely still a team to watch. And then in the Midwest, Gonzaga. Will they be able to slay the dragon, if you will, and get past Zach Edey and Purdue? That's going to be very important because you look at Gonzaga, I think they kind of found their stroke late in the season. I know that the Jayhawks had injuries, but we saw that the way that the Zags were able to dominate them in the second half this past Saturday to get to the Sweet 16 as the Zags are looking to move on. But you look at this Purdue team, and it just comes down to how the game is officiated and will they be able to slow down Zach Edey? And I think Zach Edey is so tough to stop in the post. What you have to do if you're Gonzaga, you got to try to slow down the people around Zach Edey. That's going to be the important thing for the Zags there. On the other side, you got Creighton going up against Tennessee. And for Creighton, they got to the Elite Eight last year. A lot of people feel that they have what it takes to get back to the Final Four. Creighton's not a deep team. And that's something that the Tennessee Volunteers are going to look to test and look to exploit. This is a very interesting contest here because Creighton really hasn't thrown their best fastball, so to speak, so far, and they're in the Sweet 16. Now for Tennessee, they got tested immensely, okay, this past Saturday, courtesy of Texas, and I think that is going to be telling for them going forward as they look to advance. So I think like all four of these regionals are very intriguing this weekend. Conventional wisdom says, you know what, people are going to roll with Connecticut to win the East. I still think that they're favored, but when it's all said and done, you can't count out Illinois and Iowa State there either. In the West, it's one of those where conventional wisdom would say North Carolina is going to win, but I'll tell you like this: they're going to be tested against Alabama on Thursday. And then if they get past the Crimson Tide, possibly having a contest with Arizona, the Wildcats, they've been so close to getting to the Final Four since their last trip there multiple times. The Wildcats' last trip to the Final Four was back in 2001. They got to the Elite Eight in 2003. They got there in 2005 again. They got there in 2011, 2015, 2016 all in the West Regional for the most West and Midwest run once, excuse me. But nonetheless, they just have been unable to get over the hump. Will this last go around in the Pac-12 be just what the doctor ordered for Tommy Lloyd's team to finally break through? We've got to wait and see. For Houston, they're back in the Sweet 16 again, and I think this matchup with Duke this Friday is going to be tremendous. I know Marquette is going to be favored against North Carolina State, but nonetheless, Marquette's going to have to pack a lunch in that one, and they're going to have to play 40 minutes of their best basketball. And then Gonzaga. Gonzaga should not be glossed over if you're Purdue. This, in my opinion, is a top 10 team right now, the way that they're playing. But you know what? You still got to stop that big fella, which is easier said than done. And speaking of big fellas, we could be set up for a showdown in the Midwest Regional Final between Purdue and Creighton. Zach Edey against Ryan Kalkbrenner. Of course, advantage right there for Edey because he is a slightly bigger than Kalkbrenner, but nonetheless, I think that is going to be a battle as well. But nonetheless, we've got 52 teams that are home and their seasons have concluded, and nonetheless, it's down to 16. And of those 16, who are going to be the four that cut down the nets this coming weekend? We've got to wait and see. But nonetheless, March Madness is truly in full effect. So, folks, that's going to wrap it up. And as always, I want to take this time out to thank all of you for tuning into the 300 Pounds of Sports Knowledge podcast here on YouTube. I want to take this time out to thank all of you fine folks out there for tuning in. And if you have not already, please feel free to subscribe to this channel. Now, if you're on the X, formerly known as Twitter, please feel free to follow me at 300 Pounds of Sports. And like I always say, if you follow me, it will be my pleasure to follow you right back. There's also the sports discussion group on Facebook at the Sports Depot 365. Now you can check it out. Drop a line and be a part of one of the better sports debating sites going on social media. So once again, fine folks, my name is William Martin, and I am signing off. And I'm saying take care and have yourselves a wonderful